Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. My name is Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is award-winning sports writer and, yes, my brother, Tim Leonard, as we talk sports every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., part of the WHPC Sports Talk family, which is every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and Tuesdays from 10 p.m. to midnight. Brother, we've been talking about Major League Baseball returning for a while now, and when we first started, at least for me, I was very upbeat about it. I figured they were going to get a half a season in, and they were going to figure out what to do, and I don't think that anymore.
Well, you're usually such an upbeat kind of guy, brother. Come on, let's start there.
I know that, but I look at it as, is this even going to happen? I mean, they're fighting. There's also problems with COVID-19 now. It's almost like there's some people trying to sabotage it. And I'm not talking about the COVID. I'm talking about just the whole season. They're like saying, "Oh, okay, we can take off for the year." You know, and I'm not sure you can do that. I think it's
they might be forced to.
That's true.
There are a lot of things going on. I mean, let's start with the obvious here. Is that Major League Baseball owners, they thought they had a deal a few days ago when they proposed a 60-game season, and the players seemed receptive to it. The salary was going to be for the players was going to be the prorated number that they had. They keep claiming that they agreed to in March, which has been up for debate, but the owners were fine with that. There was going to be a universal DH in both leagues, and there was going to be expanded playoffs. And the owners left that meeting and were under the impression that they had an agreement and that everything was good. And then a couple of days later, Major League Baseball Players Association President Tony Clark went back to the owners with a counter proposal. And from what I read, the owners were stunned because they thought they had an agreement. And now here's Tony Clark saying, well, we have more stuff that we want. So that kind of set things back a little bit. And now in between, there was actually supposed to be a vote on Sunday. And apparently that's been pushed back because in the interim between all of these proposals and counter proposals, 8 members of the Philadelphia Phillies organization have tested positive for COVID-19, and 5 of those 8 are players. The Toronto Blue Jays have had a player show symptoms of coronavirus, and right now, all of Major League Baseball teams have closed their training facilities because right now, Florida and Arizona, which are the two states where these facilities are, those are the hot spots in the country right now. Florida is a COVID-19 disaster area as far as I'm concerned, and Arizona isn't really far behind. So now we're talking about a sport that wants to send players into those places. So what do you do? Where do you go now? Because basically what they've done is close the facilities to do deep cleaning. They're expanding their testing protocols at the same time. And right now everything is up in the air, and with good reason, because I really at this point am probably less confident of a baseball season happening than I have been in at least a month, if not 2. I've maintained my optimism for the most part, even with the owners and players fighting over who's going to get paid what and how many games are there going to be and what's everything has been tooth and nail. They're fighting about minutia. But now with this latest outbreak, and especially 5 Phillies players, that's a significant number.
Right.
Where do we go from here? And will baseball be able to get through even 60 games without a team having an outbreak? Because they want to be traveling all over the country and going from city to city just like they normally would. Can they do this under normal conditions? And I don't think they can.
I don't either, and I also think that, it depends how many players you have, too. I mean, if you bring in a lot more minor league players to sort of be the backup guys if someone were to get sick, then, you would have this, maybe a different type of team setup. But at the same time, you can't keep everyone together. You sort of have to keep that next 25, let's say, someplace else so they don't get sick. And, of course, the main problem is, as you said, Florida is just a disaster. I mean, this goes back to their not so smart governor, who
they're idiot
said,
governor. Let's not be generous here. Let's not be nice. Their governor is an idiot.
Well, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Mets and the Yankees reportedly are going to be practicing, and it won't be spring training anymore; it'll be summer training. In New York. Because New York.
And why not? It's safe here, brother. It's safe for the most part.
It is.
We have done what we needed to do to flatten the curve, and meanwhile, the idiot governor in Florida said, "Oh yeah, everybody go to the beach, go get drunk, go to the bars, do whatever you want to do. We'll just ignore the virus and it'll go away." Well, no, that's idiot. It's idiocy. And now Florida is getting, the karma is coming back because all of these dopes who were on the beaches and in the bars and not socially distancing and not wearing masks and all of these stupid kids who've been saying, well, if I get it, I get it, and it's my time. And like, what kind of stupidity is that? It's all coming home to roost, as they say. And it seems like almost everybody in Florida has this thing now. They're getting records of cases on a daily basis.
And, you can't have – it's not just Major League Baseball. You have other sports wanting to use Florida and Orlando, especially at Disney World, as their setup.
Basketball.
And, yeah, can you do that if everyone is sick there, or can get sick? I'm sure Disney World is taken care of because it's Disney World, and they have better standards maybe than the state of Florida.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I would, because Disney
is kind of famous for not treating their employees well.
I didn't say the employees. I'm talking about the way they clean things.
Well, that's part of not that if you're cheap with your employees, chances are you're cheap with keeping things clean. So I don't know. The problem with that with the NBA aspect of this is the NBA. To me, it's a more possible situation because the players would be existing in a bubble, so to speak. That's been the whole game plan from the start, is put the players in a hotel, have them play games, just keep them in an area. And basketball can do that because if you just have the players going from the hotel to the gym, the arena, whatever it is they're playing in, and then go back to the hotel, you have somebody cooking for them, you have somebody making the meals and doing all that, and limit the number of people who are inside that bubble. I think they have a better chance at being able to do this, even if they're in the middle of Florida.
That's true. I mean, and also there's less people.
To be responsible.
There's less people in the NBA too, so I mean that's part of it also.
Never mind with less people; they'll be playing less games also.
Right.
You're talking about teams playing 8 or 9 games to finish the season and to determine playoff seeds, and then they go into the playoffs. So
right.
Almost, within a span of 2 weeks, if that, you're going to be eliminating several teams because you're only going to have 16 left. I think it was 22 teams are going down there, so 6 teams will be fairly immediately departing because they won't qualify for the playoffs, and then you have 16 teams. So their entire season will be completed in a fairly quick way. But like I said, they'll be able to keep everybody in the same place. And baseball isn't doing that. Baseball wants to do business as usual where teams go to a city, they play 3 games. Okay, let's pack our bags, let's go to the airport, and we're flying out and going to the next city, and now we're walking through another airport. And granted, the way Major League Baseball players travel, they don't interact with the public.
No.
They go from the bus. They're on the tarmac. They're getting on the plane. Major League Baseball players are not going through TSA checkpoints and whatnot. It doesn't happen that way. All right. The fact that they have major league contracts pretty much makes them exempt from TSA. I don't think Brett Gardner is going to bring a shoe bomb onto a plane. You know what I mean?
Well, you never know.
No, I know. But Brett Gardner, proud American. So, but the point being that you're still, even though in the travel aspect of it, you're not exposing players to the public. There are still other people involved. There are flight attendants on the planes. There are hotel people, because you're going to be in a different hotel like twice a week. You're going to be in a different hotel. So it's all the employees at the hotel. You're talking people who work at the stadium, the grounds crews, and all of those. There are too many people involved with the baseball plan, as far as I'm concerned, for it to work. And I don't like saying that, but I can't imagine. It wouldn't surprise me after this thing that happened with the Phillies especially, but there are other teams involved as well. I mean, I'll just the Astros, the Angels, and the Nationals all have had players either test positive or show symptoms of coronavirus in the last few days. The San Francisco Giants and the Texas Rangers both closed their facilities to do a deep cleaning and to expand their testing protocols. Now, that was before the all of the clubs made the decisions to shut down their training facilities, and I want to say that was done on Friday. But now we're in a situation where everything is kind of put on hold, and the players were supposed to vote on Sunday about whether they're going to come back to the field under that agreement or that proposal that the owners had suggested. The owners don't want to play more than 60 games because they don't want the season to extend too far, because everybody is predicting this second wave is going to happen. I don't know how we're going to have a second. Well, hang on. I don't know if we're going to have a second wave if we don't allow the first one to stop, which we haven't done.
Well, also there's going to be no fans in the stadium, so there's no money to be made. So they probably want a 50-game season, to be honest with you, and then just
the owners want fewer games and the players want more games, because the players will be getting a prorated salary.
Right.
So every extra game they get is more money in their pockets.
It's probably let's say it was $1 million per game that the teams lose. I don't even know what the number is, but depending on ownership of the stadium and everything else, what type of contracts you have with your TV people, that's part of it too. So that's the main thing. If I was the owners, I'd shoot for 50 games.
But it becomes a point of, at what point does the season become ridiculous? It doesn't matter. If you play 1/3 of your season, what kind of season is that?
It's nothing. But I think they're just trying to save the season. So when you look at the history of baseball, it doesn't say no season due to COVID-19 disease.
It's better than no season, no World Series due to strike.
Well, I know that was
at least there's a reason,
right? But I think they just want to have a season. So they want a short season so people can talk and get it out of their system. But I don't know. I get lost with this. These guys are fighting over stupidity, and I don't think either side's going to come out a so-called winner on this. So,
well, like I said, the owners are looking at a 60-game schedule with expanded playoffs that would have a couple of extra teams in the postseason, and they also want the players to promise not to file a grievance, which I think is one of the key items there, because I think the owners with this whole yes, we had an agreement on prorated salaries in March, and then they came back and said, well, the agreement said we could revisit that if there were no fans in the stands. I think that was a bunch of garbage, and they're trying to save themselves from a lawsuit. It's either that, either the players agree to that, or if they reject it, that would force Commissioner Rob Manfred to implement his own schedule, and that would be potentially without the extra playoff teams, but it would the players would still have their right to the grievances going back, like I said, to that March agreement about the prorated salaries. So I don't know. I mean, we're going to see. I think for optics and to try to get fans on their side, I think it would be in the players' best interest to agree to the 60-game schedule. And, I mean, let's put it this way. If the players are determined to sue the owners, then they're going to reject it. And I think there would be a backlash from the fans, because I think that if that's what happens, then the players are going to be seen as the bad guys here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you don't want to be.
I think that's something they have to realize, and that's something that they should think about, because either way, the season is going to be just ridiculously short.
Well, so, they're not going to go really deep into October, November, November, I should say. So, I mean, that's to me a big problem. I would have continued it, but I understand why they want to go back in April. That's in 2021. You know what? 2021 is so far away right now.
But that doesn't even have much to do with what they're talking about. They want,
but it does.
The owners,
they want the season to. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
They don't want to start They don't want to start their next year, 2021, in June. They want to start it in April like they normally do.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about baseball keeping their schedules.
Their schedule is going to be kept.
I'm talking about for next year.
Pay attention.
I am paying attention.
No, you're not. The owners want the season done by September 27th. All right?
I know that, bro.
Then they will have the postseason. So I don't know why you think the season is going to go into December. It's not.
Well, that's what they should have done. They should have done that. They made a mistake.
Why?
Because
you just contradicted yourself.
No. What I'm saying, brother, is by the time they get going, it's going to be August. And then what do you do? Yes, it will. They're not ready yet.
I understand that. They will start sometime in mid-July. Once this vote is, if the vote is accepted, boom, they're in training camp.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that is that right now you have, where is the training camp going to be? Because if they don't want to send them to Florida, then they're going to have to go to their home stadiums, which at this point, for a lot of teams, is safer than it is to going to Florida or Arizona. So that would be if they have to wind up cutting the training part a little shorter than they wanted to, well, then that's what it's going to be, because the owners, like I said, the owners want the regular season to be done by September 27th, because they don't want to bump into this second wave that's being predicted. Although I can't imagine how they even have a clue as far as when the second wave is going to be, because nobody has an exact date on that. But we do know that when the weather starts getting colder, then that's when the second wave is going to be. So from that standpoint, that's why the owners don't want to add another 10 games and maybe go into November. They don't want that. The players want it because they want more money.
Yeah, but that's only on the basis that they started mid-July. I don't think they're going to get to that. I think they're going to start in August.
They will.
They're fighting too much about silliness.
Well, like I said, they've gotten to the point now where a vote needs to be taken either today, tomorrow, whichever, but it's going to be taken in the next 48 hours. So it needs to happen, because if the vote doesn't happen, or if they all of a sudden see more cases pop up, then baseball is just going to say, you know what, we can't do this. It's not going to happen this year. We're just going to cancel the season, and we'll come back in 2021.
Well,
and that to me right now is a realistic possibility, because if we see in the next 48 hours, if we see a dozen more cases, then I think the baseball season is in very real jeopardy. And again, this is changing on an hourly basis. And so I don't even want to sit here and say and try to predict anything, but I will predict that if there are more cases and more positive tests come back with Major League Baseball teams and players, then I can't imagine them going forward with the season. It wouldn't make any sense. You're putting too many people's health at risk. And what about what about older managers and Dusty Baker, Joe Madden, guys like that? They're practically 70. Dusty Baker, I think, is older than 70. How are they going to deal with this, and how are they going to how are you going to put them into the situation where that all of a sudden could be a life-threatening situation?
Well, that's something to think about, brother. Let's continue. Let's talk about the Jets. Jamal Adams, he's requested a trade. I love the fact that the NFL just thinks or acts if there's nothing happening in the fall with COVID-19. Anyway,
they're being optimistic, and that might come back to bite them in the butt because, again, the NFL is operating under the assumption that they will be able to have training camps in a normal way, and I'm not sure that that's the case. And especially with football, to me, that's going to be the most difficult sport because what do you have in football? You got guys smashing into each other for 60 minutes. Especially on the lines, you got 300-pound plus, big burly men, sweaty all over the place, and smashing into each other. So
no, I agree.
How do you, there's absolutely no social distancing. I can't even imagine them asking players to play with face masks on, like with not helmet face masks, but medical face masks. I don't even see how that would be possible.
Well, the only way they can do it is get those plastic ones and put them in between the face guards on their helmets.
Yeah,
that's the only way to do it.
I can see them playing with like a lot. Some of the players will have like a plexiglass shield in their face mask and helmet.
Right, I can see that.
I can see that becoming an essential part of a player's helmet. But what about wide receivers? Are they gonna be able to adjust to something like that? Because it does throw off your vision and your depth perception, and you'd have to learn how to play with that. So I don't know if wide receivers would be too happy about that. I don't know that it would impact linemen at all because they're just whether they have a face mask on or not, they're just smashing into each other. So.
Well, maybe you put it on for the linemen, but not for the wide receivers because they're just running most of the time, and then they get hit and they're pushed out of bounds. So
right. So it's to me, like I said, football is going to be the most difficult sport to try to get this thing done because even you can practice and maybe you're not having a full contact practice, but guys are still in close proximity to each other. So you can't social distance football. It's not possible. And it's not really possible in basketball either, or hockey for that matter, because they hit each other too. But in football, it's completely impossible.
I agree with you, brother. Now, what about Jamal Adams? What he's requesting a trade? What he doesn't like what he's getting paid right now? I mean,
I'm really torn on Jamal Adams because I love Jamal Adams. I really do. He is a great player. He is a guy who I was thrilled when the Jets drafted him. He has fulfilled every pre-draft prediction that people made about him, and he is pretty much unquestionably the face of the Jets. And he seems to be doing everything he can to get himself traded out of town. And I don't understand that. If you want to be the face of the franchise and the ownership or the GM, the powers that be, if they're the ones saying, we want you to be a Jet for life, well, you know what? You got to be patient because your union, Jamal Adams, is the union that negotiated the current agreement with the players and the owners. So the contract that he signed as a rookie, that deal and those terms were negotiated by his union. So he wants to accelerate the process. Jamal Adams this year, I don't even know what he's making. It's something like it's so low. It's like $1.5 million or something. I will acknowledge he will be brutally underpaid this year. But then next year his money goes up to $9.5 million. So next year he gets paid. Then that would be the end of his trade, but then the Jets could also franchise tag him.
Right.
So the Jets, in theory, have 3 more years of Jamal Adams. So what is the Jets' motivation to tear up that contract, that team-friendly contract, and say, all right, Jamal, yeah, we want to give you 6 years for $100 million, which I don't even know if Jamal Adams would agree to. He might want more than that. So from that standpoint, I really think Jamal Adams is being a jerk. He signed the contract. His signature is on the contract. He agreed to those terms. And like I said, that's his union that negotiated those terms with the ownership. So that in sports, that's how it goes. If you're a good young player, chances are you're not going to get paid right away. You're going to have to wait until the 5 years is up, or whichever sport it is, depending on the sport, whatever the terms are. But the waiting game is what it is. And I understand in football, your career could be over at any time. But this is what it is. And for Jamal Adams to say to the Jets, well, I want an extension now, well, you don't understand the process. And for him to say to the Jets, well, if you're not going to pay me, then trade me. Well, you know what? They have you under contract for 2 more years. So unless he's going to hold out and get fined and not get paid for breach of contract, what's he going to do?
But then at the same time, brother, by saying to trade me, he says in advance to the Jets, if you're not going to take care of me, well, get something for me and get me the hell out of here. That's what he's saying.
They want to take care of him, but like I said, he's under contract already for at least 2 years.
Right.
If we were talking about this a year from now, I'd be a little more sympathetic. But we're not. So it's just, Patrick Mahomes hasn't gotten an extension yet. Has Patrick Mahomes been popping off and saying, well, gee, when am I going to get paid? No, he's not, because he knows he's going to get paid. And Jamal Adams either wants to be a Jet or he just wants money. And it seems to me like he just wants money. I don't know that he really cares about being a Jet. It seems to me like he's more interested in being a Dallas Cowboy because he's from the Dallas area. But what does he want? If he's just looking for whoever is going to give him the biggest salary, then trade him, get rid of him.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because all he's going to do is screw up your salary cap. This guy, he wants to be the highest paid Jet, not just the highest paid safety, the highest paid Jet. C.J. Mosley got a deal last year for $17 million a year, which is a crazy deal for an inside linebacker, but that's what the Jets gave him. He wants to get paid more than C.J. Mosley. There's not a team in the league that's going to give him that much money.
No, and I don't expect any team to do that.
I'll tell you what, I would expect a team to probably give him somewhere in the neighborhood of $13 to $15 million a year. But then you're getting into some real high price territory, and teams aren't going to go much above that for a safety. Because here Jamal Adams has been talking a lot about Christian McCaffrey, and the Carolina Panthers gave him the extension. Now they were in the same draft class. Now, the only reason the Carolina Panthers gave McCaffrey that much money is he is their offense.
Right.
There's nobody else on that team. They are not going to be a good team this year. But did they have to do it? No. But they want to keep McCaffrey around because right now they're rebuilding. And they need Christian McCaffrey as the central figure in that rebuild. Because if he's not there, then nobody's going to be there. And if he's not there, they'll go 1-15 next year. So they paid him. He's going to be there. He touches the ball probably as much as anybody in the league. So he takes more punishment than anybody in the league. And he's the guy they identified as, all right, this is the guy we're going to have here who's going to lead us back to the promised land. But is Jamal Adams that guy? No, he doesn't play that kind of position. If Jamal Adams was like a Lawrence Taylor kind of linebacker, I'd say, yeah, give him money. But he's not. He's a safety.
Right. He's no Deion Sanders either, and I always thought Deion was overrated, but that's just me.
Well, Deion was a corner, so he was more of a cover guy, but his gift was that he was so fast that receivers couldn't beat him. So they wouldn't throw to his side of the field. Deion Sanders was a lousy tackler. He couldn't tackle anybody. He didn't like contact. But he was so fast and he was so good at covering wide receivers that they didn't even bother. If Deion was on one side of the field, quarterback was looking at the other side of the field. Because he's like, oh, Deion's over there. I'm not going to bother with that. My guy won't be open. But I give Jamal Adams a lot of credit. Like I said, I love the guy. He does a lot of different things. He can blitz. He can stack quarterbacks. He's a phenomenal hitter. He is a guy that does a lot for that Jets defense. But there is a point, if you're a general manager, that you have to say, you know what? I can't pay you this much because it's just going to screw up my salary structure. And general managers, they have to set salary structures every year. And right now, Joe Douglas has a ledger sheet, basically, where he has Jamal Adams penciled in at $1.5 million for this year. Now, if you all of a sudden bump that number up to 12, 13 million, well, now he's got to subtract from other areas because it's not just a salary cap. It's not just a salary cap thing.
Can they sign him after? Can they sign him now to an extension on his contract right now? So he has 2 more years on the contract. And they say to him, okay, starting 2 years from now, we're going to give you $15 million a year for 5 years. Can they do that right now?
They would, as far as I know, they would have to tear up the existing contract.
So they couldn't continue the contract that he currently had and then add on to it.
I mean, they probably could.
So that's what I would do.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the whole average annual value thing impacts the salary cap, or what it would be. Plus, if they were going to do that, Adams wants more money now. He doesn't want $15 million 4 years from now, because he knows he's going to get that at some point anyway, or close to it. He wants more. He wants like $10 million this year. He doesn't want $1.5 million. So and next year, like I said, he's going to make about $9.5 million on the rookie contract that he signed. That's when the money jumps. But obviously, he wants more than that. He still thinks $9.5 million is underpaid, which for his caliber, he probably is. But this is the process. And do I agree with it? No, I don't. I think it's pretty stupid, actually. But this is what happens when veteran players sell out rookies, and they say, well, you know what? You get drafted, you get into a slot, and that's your salary. There's no real negotiation. This is what it is. Sure. This is the contract. But this is what veterans negotiated. Veteran players were getting sick of rookies coming out of college and getting these monster deals before they'd even played a snap in the NFL. So they said, you know what? We'll make it so college players coming out just get a certain amount. And there won't be any negotiation, and there won't be any of these mega contracts, because this is the amount. Okay? And
that makes – and I hate to say it, brother, if you're going to have a draft, it makes kind of sense to do that. I mean, I
don't disagree.
Because you haven't proven anything, and maybe make it 2 years instead of 3 years or 4 years, whatever, to maybe up the salary. But it's not a bad idea. I mean, because the player comes in, he blows his knee out. Okay, well, what happens? There's a lot of people who screwed up along the way.
Right, but with the NFL especially, they can they'll just void the contract and release the player, and that's it. There's no guaranteed money like there is in baseball. And like, I know what you're saying as far as the contract goes with Jamal Adams, and the Jets are getting a great bargain, and that's because they made a great draft pick. Good for them. But if you look at somebody like Eric Flowers, for example, from the Giants, remember him, the lineman? He was a disaster.
Yep.
So now, why are you going to pay him more money and be on the hook? Like, let's say you make the more money in year 3. So instead of the $1.5 million that Adams is getting this year, it goes up to like $5 or $6 million. Well, if you're the Giants with Eric Flowers, why do you want to pay him that much money if he hasn't produced thus far? And now you have to make a faster decision on a draft pick. Maybe the guy's a slow developer. Maybe he's kind of just coming into his own. But now you're going to jump his salary up by like 400, 500%. So now, I mean, Adams is, to me, he's more of an outlier, because here's a guy in his 3rd year, and he's a Pro Bowler. He's an elite player, and he became an elite player in the league very quickly. That doesn't happen very often. It happens more often that a guy is either an average player or below average player. It usually takes a little while for somebody to become, to get to the level that Jamal Adams is at now. So it's difficult because I've always been with contracts. I've always been somebody who, if you put your name on a deal, then you live up to the deal, and that's how it should be. I'm not a fan of what Jamal Adams is doing. Like I said, if this was a year after this, if we were talking about this in June of 2021, I might be a little more sympathetic to Jamal because, like I said, he'd be going into a year where he's going to make $9 million. Hey, now let's renegotiate. Now let's put some more years on the deal and maybe give me a little more of a bump for this year. But let's find a sweet spot where we can extend this thing for like maybe 5 years for like $75 million and like I said, maybe get me a little more money this year, and I'll sacrifice a little more money for like years 4 and 5 that maybe I could have gotten somewhere else, but I want to stay at Jet. And again, I don't know that that's a priority I don't think it is. I really think he's just looking to do like a Darrelle Revis and try to maximize his earnings for as long as he can during his career.
Good point, brother. You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. The show you're listening to is From the Press Box. We're here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. talking sports. My name is Rob Leonard, and, of course, my co-host is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard, brother. Now, we actually saw something this past weekend, brother. If I'm not mistaken, it's the first sporting event in New York since everything closed down, and that's the Belmont Stakes.
Belmont.
I didn't think about it. I mean, there was no one there. There was a fan-less show, but at least the Triple Crown will happen, and because of the weirdness of the whole thing, the Belmont became the first instead of the third. They also changed it around a little bit, which disappointed me. One thing about the Belmont, which I've always liked, and I think it's a little New York attitude too, brother, is that they have the Kentucky Derby, and then they have what's the second one?
The Preakness.
Preakness. I was thinking Pimlico for some reason.
Down at Pimlico in Baltimore.
Right. Okay. And then you have the mile and a half. Then you have the Belmont Stakes. So
a long
Kentucky,
race,
it's a long race.
Long race.
Kentucky, Preakness, Belmont,
right.
and it's the longest one. But for the first race, they actually made it much shorter, considering it's the Belmont. So that was a little bit different. At least they got something out of it. It was on TV. It was a big event, but there was no cheering. There was no, if I'm not mistaken, the horse owners weren't even allowed to be in there.
I think some of them were. I read an article that said there were about 100 people there, but it was all like, it wasn't fans. It was all, horse people and the people who were connected to the race in some way. But not everybody was there. Like the owner of the horse that won it, Tiz the Law, was apparently watching up in Saratoga.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, what are you going to do? This is how it is.
Now, did they have betting on this too? Was it OTB?
Oh, of course. What are you kidding me?
Was OTB open?
I don't know what. Yeah, well, OTB. Well, I don't know if OTB actually exists anymore, but yeah, they.
Well, actually, I guess
you
can do it online. I guess you can.
Yeah, there was online betting for sure. I mean, that's Tiz the Law was a 4-5 favorite. So yeah, he won and he paid. I forget what it was. I think it was like $360 or something like that. But yeah, there certainly was betting. There's no horse racing without betting.
There's no reason for horse racing without betting.
It doesn't exist without betting.
No, and I remember years ago there was a strike. I think the people who do the tickets, the betting tickets, and so there was no betting, and then no one showed up. It was like I don't know if it was Aqueduct or Belmont years ago. Like they had like 2,000 people there. It's like no one's there to just say, oh, let's watch the horses today. But right. So hey, and also this guy, this horse Tiz the Law, is a New York bred horse.
He's a New Yorker, baby.
He's a New Yorker. He's arrogant as ever, as we found out when a 4-5 favorite winning. So they're going to have the Kentucky, and they're going to have the Preakness, and at least something is going on in sports. It's nice to see that.
I'm sure our man Steve Matthews in Newsday had Tiz the Law to win.
Are you sure about that?
I didn't see it in the paper, but I'm pretty sure he did. That's the kind of horse he would pick.
Oh, okay. And you're friends with Steve, of course, and
Yes, Steve, brother of Wally Matthews, friend of the show.
And of course, Steve does the horse racing for Newsday still, right?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, brothers, Tiz the Law, the first New York-bred horse to win the Belmont since Forrester in 1882.
Wow.
I couldn't believe that when I read that. 1882, the first New York bred. Why has a New York horse not won the Belmont in 138 years? It is my math correct on that? I think it is. But he was a 4-5 favorite. It was not a big field, and Bob Baffert, who was one of the more famous trainers out there, actually had to scratch both of his horses, so he didn't have a horse in the Belmont for the first time in a long time. But Tiz the Law, from what I saw the race, he never really struggled. It was a fairly easy trip for him. He kind of charged into the lead as they were turning for home and just pretty much cruised to 3 3/4 length of victory. Covered the 1 1/8 miles, not the 1 1/2, but because they shortened the Belmont because it's the first race. But 1 1/8 in 1:46 and 53. Dr. Post finished second, and Max Player was the third place horse. I don't like either of those names, so I'm glad they didn't win. So now we look at the Kentucky Derby, which won't be until September 5th. I mean, this is how crazy the schedule is now. And then the Preakness will follow nearly a month after that on October 3rd. Now, usually these races are, 3 weeks apart, I believe?
Well, it's May. It starts in May, the first week in May, I think, for the Kentucky, and then Preakness, and then the Belmont's usually the second or third week, depending on the schedule.
The Belmont, the article that I read said the Belmont was originally scheduled for June 6th. So that would have been the last of the three. Right. But it's like I said, Kentucky Derby's been rescheduled for September 5th, the Preakness for October 3rd, and that's at least a week longer than usual in terms of the time between the races and for the horses to recover and train and do all that. So I'm glad Tiz the Law won. I like to see a New York horse win, but I don't know what we're going to have in terms of the rest of those. The rest of the horses, and how big the fields are going to be going forward, and also, like you pointed out before, to have Belmont be empty. I mean, usually there's 100,000 people there on Belmont Stakes Day. To have it be empty, it was just strange.
I used to live literally across the street from Belmont a long time ago.
Yes, back in the days when you were training the horses.
Yeah, and one thing about when the Belmont happens, the entire town of Elmont is just taken over. Because first part of it is just people looking to, who've never been there before, they're parking or they're in the wrong spot or whatever, or they're looking just to go to the Wendy's down the street or something. It's a great thing that, they get that many people in one area. They've had train problems for years because they never put enough trains there. But it was nice to always see that type of thing. And also, a few years ago when, more than a few, but, when the Knicks and the Rangers were in the finals that year, then the Belmont happened on the same day. It was just like, it was one of those magical sports days where, here are the Knicks and here are the Rangers and here's the Belmont all the same day within the area of New York. So it's, it's, as much as I'm not a horse watcher per se, I always watch the Belmont just because it's New York.
Yeah, it's a big event. It's I'll watch the big events with all this stuff. I'm certainly no horse player either, but if you have the Belmont or the Preakness or the Kentucky Derby, and especially with the Kentucky Derby, there's so much history and tradition there and everything else. I don't know that that's the case with the Belmont because.
No, it's not. I mean,
there's no mint juleps in the whole atmosphere and whatnot. The Belmont is unlike the other Triple Crown races because it really does kind of mirror New York. There's a lot of horse
Yeah.
players there. I mean, yes, and then there's also a lot of people who are just there because it's the trendy event and they want to be seen at the trendy event, like Studio 54 used to be. You know,
Yeah,
like,
and also,
everybody
you know,
wanted to be there.
it's, you know, if they had a mid julep or some sort of drink, you know,
They have a Belmont Breeze. I read it. I've never even heard of that.
Belmont Breeze, and you know, it's like a half a shot of whiskey or something, making, you know, like a Long Island iced tea. And one thing that's, you know, that makes Kentucky Derby is, you know, all the women wear their hats, and
Right.
you know, the guys get dressed up a little bit too. So you know, each race has their own feel.
Yeah,
and
it's more formal and more like a party or whatever. You know, the Belmont the women wear their best T-shirt. I mean, come on.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but anyway, you know, it's
a
nice
little more gritty.
Yeah, it's nice to see actually an actual sports event in New York since March, because we haven't had one.
And to have a New Yorker win it.
Yep, I mean, we see sports happening in the Premier League. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But you know, but at the same time, you know, nothing's happened in the States. So it was, you know, it is nice to see this. Now, this past week, we talk about the Nassau Coliseum. Everyone's worried about what's happening with the Nassau Coliseum. The man who owns it, or runs it, I should say, he has a 49-year contract. Is Mikhail Prokhorov.
Prokhorov, yeah.
Bro, okay.
He is the former owner of the Nets, brother.
Right, and part of the deal was, first of all, the Coliseum isn't going to be closed for long. Everyone says, "Oh my God, it's going to be closed forever." No, it's not. Prokhorov wants to get out of this deal because he's losing money, and he realizes that the deal that the Barclays Center did when they picked up the contract sort of to run the Coliseum was a horrible deal. They shouldn't have given the money that they did. Madison Square Garden, which I will honestly say, as I always do, I own stock in through my 401k, and I used to work as part of the AMC Network's Madison Square Garden thing. They should have probably been given it, because they were going to keep it at 16,000 seats, not the 13,900 that we have now, which was purposely done.
Okay.
So Prokhorov, who may or may not gotten favors from Putin.
No, he did. Let's put that out there. He did.
Well, he's a Russian billionaire who easily acquired things that maybe shouldn't have been acquired that easily. I don't want to, accuse
let's not
him
get
of
too much
anything.
into that, brother.
Yes. Anyway, he sold the Nets to Joseph Tsai. I think it's Tsai. Okay. So he gets rid of the Barclays Center.
No, Tsai, yeah, TSAI, Joseph Tsai, yeah.
So he gets rid of the Barclays Center and he gets rid of the Nets, and Tsai ends up buying the Liberty, which from the MSG people. So he has the Coliseum. Now, he originally gets involved with the Coliseum actually to control it, so it doesn't bother the Barclays Center. But then the Islanders decide, hey, let's start playing at the Coliseum again. And next season, even though we're still not done with this year with the hockey season, the Islanders are supposed to play the whole season at the Coliseum before moving to the Belmont Arena. Whether there's a season next year, we don't even know yet. But as of right now, Mikhail is trying to get out of his contract. Now, he says he's closing the Coliseum. He doesn't have the right to do that. He's trying to get rid of his contract. And this is my prediction. There's only one person or one company that can take over a New York arena like this, and that's MSG. The other company that wanted to take over the Coliseum back when they put aluminum siding on it. Because if you drive by, that's what it looks like. Yeah, it's like Long Island aluminum siding from the 70s. Everyone got aluminum siding, and they said, what the hell is this? And then they got nice vinyl in the 80s. So that's my prediction. Whether how fast this takes, I don't know. MSG just did a stock thing. They also sold the LA Forum for $400 million, so there's plenty of money. Supposedly, Mikhail wants just basically to take over the contract. He doesn't even seem to want any money out of it. He just wants to walk away. So my prediction, brother, is that the Nassau Coliseum will be under MSG's hands in the next month or two. As soon as they figure it out.
It's going to happen
now, mind you, we haven't heard anything. Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, actually, because I think right now there's no events at the Coliseum, like just like at MSG, there's no events
anywhere
in
right
many
now.
other arenas in the country. Right. So there's no concerts. So I think he just wants to get rid of it, just so he doesn't have to, carry the nut on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you got to figure he's still paying to maintain the place.
Right. So there's certain maintenance things you have to do,
and whoever he's paying, he's still the one writing.
Would be the county. It'd be the county. So
all right, well, but
now,
those bills don't go away.
No, and the sad part about this whole thing with the Coliseum, it goes back. There's a lot of bad players in this whole deal. As much as we like Charles Wang, sometimes it seemed that the buying the Islanders was more of a real estate deal than saving the team. You have some politicians in certain parts of Nassau and Hempstead which didn't want to have the new arena because, oh my God, we don't want to turn into Queens. Meanwhile, you can't make a right on red anymore on Hempstead Turnpike.
Right.
So there's a lot of bad players here. So, and then they built the new the Belmont Arena, and which is great. It's going to be a great place, but it's not in the middle of Nassau County. It's literally on the borderline of Queens and Nassau. It's going to be much more difficult to get to that. So that's my prediction. The MSG buys, because I can't see anyone else having any interest in it, the way MSG would have an idea for it. So,
unless there's some surprise bidder that comes in, maybe your boy, the Wilpons will come in and buy it after they get some of that Mets money. After A-Rod and J-Lo pay $2 billion for the Mets.
Yeah, that's sure.
That would be frightening, huh?
That's what I want. I want the Wilpons to come in and do nothing. I don't want them anywhere near anything. By the way, yesterday, brother, on Father's Day, I got a text from A-Rod.
Nice.
Wishing me because for those who don't know, he had a thing where you text him and he might randomly call you or whatever. So I wrote, hey, I know he hasn't called yet. So I said, well, you should come on our show. We're on Mondays at 9. I was going to say,
tell him to call us at 9.
We'd love to have you on for the 5 minutes. And he hasn't called back for that, but why not? We'd have him on Zoom or something.
Yeah, get him on.
Yeah, so it's as much as the Coliseum has a great history, it's still a weird situation, for Long Island because it's right in the middle of everything. It's just there. I mean, they still need a train station, but that
it's right in the middle of everything. But at the same time, it's not very easy to get to.
No.
I mean, if driving, sure, it's easy to get to, but then you have to deal with traffic and you have to deal with the long lines getting in and out of the place. It's not a fan-friendly place from that standpoint. Because, like you said, there is no way mass transit to get to the Coliseum.
Not right now, but they could have built it, years ago when in '72. There's still a train track that cuts through the college where we are. And,
but I just wish it was a little more friendly from that standpoint in terms of and that's why I'm looking forward to Belmont. If you could just hop on a train and go to the game, hopefully it won't be a disaster like the Barclays was with sporadic trains after games.
Well, I'll mention one more thing about the Belmont thing, because I know the problem is people on the South Shore can't take the train without going to Jamaica. So you can't do that. You have to find a way to go directly to the Belmont Arena and then leave the Belmont and go back on the Babylon branch. Because
hopefully that'll happen.
It can be done. The tracks can be laid down. The governor has to set that up like he set up the Belmont Arena, basically, and then other things. Okay, brother, let's talk about the Premier League. We got about 5 more minutes.
Yes, brother.
They are playing.
Of course.
What's their deal? How are they getting tested all the time? Or there's a lot of sweating in soccer too.
They have the protocols all going on, and that's it's all part of it. I mean, in some ways, I think that American sports can look at the soccer leagues because the German Bundesliga has been playing for several weeks now, and this was the opening week for the Premier League. It started on Wednesday. We saw Manchester City just kicked the crap out of Arsenal. They beat them 3-0, and probably wasn't even that close. But that was one of the first two games on Wednesday. And for right now, there's games pretty much every day for as it's going on. Like today, Sunday, Liverpool, first place Liverpool, the soon-to-be champion Liverpool, played a 0-0 draw with crosstown rival Everton. That's what's known as the Merseyside Derby. But for the most part, I've watched several of the games. They have been, to say the least, lackluster. All of these clubs are coming back after training and after having a 3.5-month break, and they are definitely shaking off some rust.
Right.
The matches, for the most part, have not been all that entertaining. That Manchester City match was pretty entertaining because City scored 3 goals. There was a match the other day. Brighton beat Arsenal. I think it was on Saturday, 2-1, with a goal that was scored literally in the last 10 seconds of the match. So that was pretty nice. But they're, like I said, most of the games have not had that kind of excitement. Have been, just.
Well, one thing about British soccer, British football, whatever you want to call it, is it's a singing event as much as a drinking event, as much as a hanging out with your buddies and watching your team events.
That's all sports. I mean,
yeah,
maybe not singing as much.
I really think that the British football guys get much more involved than some of our guys. I mean, maybe the 1940 champs,
but without the fans, it definitely has an impact on the atmosphere and an impact on what's going on in the field. So my Tottenham Hotspur, they got a goal from Steven Bergwijn on Saturday,
right.
and then the referee gifted Manchester United with a penalty kick in what became a 1-1 draw. That was pretty much the biggest match of the weekend.
Right.
And then, like I said, Liverpool on Sunday.
Right, brother. We got to go, brother. I hate to tell you, our time is up. Big Ed's coming up next at 10 o'clock with the Good Gold Show. You've been listening to From the Press Box right here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, of course, has been my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. We'll see you next time. Take care, and thanks for listening.